Hey guys, I'm Larissa Nicole. Thank you so much for tuning into I Said What I Said podcast. Let's get into it.
Oh, I said what I said, no shame, no regret. All this fire you can't forget. Own it loud, say it proud. I said what I said, no backing down. Oh, I said what I said.
First episode is about reinvention. Before I let you into my world, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So, I am born and raised right here in Huntsville, Alabama. I actually grew up in the suburb, Madison, the oldest daughter of two younger brothers. And I grew up in a two-parent household right here. Uh, I guess in what you could consider to be the Bible Belt, very conservative state. But I did venture off a little bit and I went to Tuscaloosa to the University of Alabama, Roll Tide. That's where I got my degrees. Um, my degree is actually my bachelor's in healthcare administration. So I had a lot of fun in college, met a lot of beautiful people in college. Shout out to all of you that are listening. uh, but from there, my healthcare administration, it pushed me into a career in healthcare and led me to Houston. My first time living outside of the state of Alabama, and a really exciting transition for me, especially on this topic of reinvention, because I feel like that was my first major reinvention that I had to make myself. More to come about my transition to Houston. But during that time is when I had the opportunity to explore the world from a different angle. I saw and learned about a lot of different cultures, met a lot of beautiful people, and navigated other crises and opportunities. One that took me again from Houston into another state is where I transitioned to my logistics career when I moved to Virginia. So I stayed in Houston for, I guess, about 5 years and transitioned from healthcare into logistics, and that moved me to Virginia. And my time in Virginia was interesting. It gave me an opportunity to really reemerge and spend a lot of time with myself, something that I hadn't done very much of up until that point. But that season was very pivotal. And it's also introduced me to a very serious relationship that brought me back home, where I was married and had my daughter, my beautiful daughter of 5 years. And now in this new season, reemerging and reinventing myself. And I'm super excited to get into today's episode because when you hear the word reinvention, you really have to think about what comes to mind. Like in business, it's called a rebrand. In mindset, it's a reset. In relationships, it can just be redefining your boundaries. In wellness, sometimes it's renewal. And even in spiritually, it can be considered a rebirth. But everywhere around us, even in nature, it reminds us that reinvention is natural. And as human beings, we are designed to evolve. And so let's just dive a little bit deeper. I'm excited because when I think about the need for reinvention, it really just gives us the opportunity to ask ourselves, okay, what triggers reinvention? And I think it comes in three different ways: transition, crisis, or opportunity. And honestly, through the transitions, you learn to just embrace them. The crisis, sometimes you have to muster through. That's what you do in crisis, right? Opportunities, they become more excitable. And when I think about the three different ways that shifts have actually occurred and transitions have occurred that have led me to reinventions, I feel like sometimes you know it and you can feel it and it's very clear. And other times I know there's been opportunities that I've missed. And so I really want to just like go back to my time in Houston and share a story, a specific story about how I got to Houston, because, in my introduction, I shared about my transition to Houston. Excuse me. But leading up to that, I believe that a shift was occurring that led me to this particular transition. I can recall for at least weeks, months, I'm going to say 6 to 8 months, I just kept feeling Houston. It kept coming up around me, it kept coming up in my spirit. I felt like I was dreaming about Houston and I didn't know anything about this city, and I didn't even know who I knew in the city. But this kind of conscious, like, nagging or nudging at me is what led me then to become more aware. And that's when I started opening up my sphere and, like, asking myself, okay, who do you actually know, Larissa, that may be in Houston? And that's when I found out that I had a friend girl out there and a close family friend that lived out there as well. And I took that as an opportunity to just book a flight and go out there. Y'all, I thought I was going to have this whole plan. My plan was I was going to set up all these interviews and I was going to go out there, spend some time out there, find a job, figure out what this transition was about while I was out there. None of that quite worked that way. But as you navigate with me through these reinventions and these opportunities where I've had to reinvent myself, you will find that I really do lean a lot into the feeling. I lean a lot into what I feel like God is leading me to do, what I feel like God is telling me to do, and that I could not shake this. And it led me to the airport and it led me to Houston with no interview set up, with nothing, honestly, that I thought that I would have needed to go out here, except for a roof over my head. So I did have a friend who let me stay at her place. And I had decided that I was just going to take my resume down her street and I was going to stop at every healthcare facility on the way. I literally got in my car and that's what I did. At the second stop, I walked in and I walked up to a lady who worked in a familiar area that I worked in at the hospital at home. And I offered her my resume and she asked me if I could interview. I literally stayed there, interviewed that day, was offered a job that next week, and I moved to Houston 4 weeks later. Like, the transitions and the shifts, they happen in life, but you really have to be aware and you have to lean into it. You have to learn how to lean into it. And as I think about what triggers the need for reinvention, it goes back to just that, a transition. God was leading me to a transition, and that led me to Houston. While I was there, I experienced a crisis because growing my healthcare career is where I growing my healthcare career led me from one healthcare hospital to different healthcare facilities, and I landed in a chain of doctors facilities. And working for this particular facility, it was smaller, but still had quite a presence in the area. There were 6 different doctors that ran the facility, and I felt in my spirit another nudging. When I talk about the shifts and I talk about the sensitivity, when you're in a reinvention, you do have to learn how to, like, slow yourself down so that you can be sensitive to what's around you. Because I do believe that if you're going busy, 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 you never have an opportunity to slow down in life and still yourself. You will miss these opportunities. You will miss these transitions, and they may show up more as crisis. This was something that should have been deemed a crisis, but I do feel like I had this unction, I had this warning, and I felt like God was leading me to save. So I was like, okay, I'm entering into this saving season, and I started stashing all this money. Literally 6 months later, found out that the company that I worked for underwent a merger and was laying off all their employees. They had me lay off all the employees and then laid me off. And I went from having this full-time job into another transition. What should have been a crisis actually just ended up being an opportunity for me to live a softer life and finish my master's in peace. So, as we talk about reinvention and slowing down, quieting yourself, stilling the things around you, once you catch it, you do have then a responsibility to make something happen. And as I hope that you can see, as I've told just through my own life story, uh, I've had to make something happen. This nudging, this shift, this opportunity to step into a transition, I could have just ignored it. I could have just acted like it wasn't happening. But I do feel like when you're in a space where you're trusting God, you're leaning in, you want to be obedient, you're following what He's saying or calling you to do, then you step into these opportunities and you leap into these opportunities with boldness and with courage. And you ask yourself you ask yourself the hard questions, like, am I outgrowing the season that I'm in? Because obviously, if God is transitioning me out of here or has a desire for me to move out of here, He has something for me somewhere else, right? So, have I outgrown this season? Is there a new version of myself that's waiting to emerge? Is there something greater in me? Have I gotten comfortable where I am? And these are the hard questions that I've had to ask myself. And this is really where the work begins, because it's so much easier to go through life as the victim. It's so much easier to woe is me and I can't right now and everything around you. But if you want to differentiate yourself and do so in a way that calls you to something higher and calls you to something greater, then your reinvention includes elevating your mindset. It includes having these hard conversations with yourself and rising to fully being the virtuous woman that God has called you to be and the high value woman that God has called you to be. And that's doing the hard inner work on yourself. And so, all of that in the stillness, in the chaos, in the invitation, it really just creates this opportunity for reinvention. It does. And the truth that I want you to take away, that reinvention is starts with loving yourself, because these decisions to ask yourself the hard questions and to lean into the pull, uh, the pull to something higher, the pull to something greater as you reinvent yourself, it starts with loving you. It starts with slowing down to feel it, leaning into the change and leaning into it with honesty. Loyalty to yourself, it will always be the most radical act of self-love that you can offer the world. And so I really just want you to hold on to that. Everything that you heard me mention and say earlier, one of the things that you may have heard me say is just when you start to have this feeling or this consciousness that continues to come up, or this nudge to shift into reinvention, to lean into that. And I said that because I don't think that we can really have this conversation about reinvention without acknowledging change. And really, this idea of embracing change versus resisting it. What you'll learn from me as we navigate this journey is that I read a lot of books. And so I'm always going to be dropping books that I'm reading, and I'm always going to be recommending books to read. And so just know that about me. I do believe that leaders are readers. And so, yeah, we read books around here. And if you're in a shift, if you're in a change, and you feel like you're kind of resistant to that right now, I really want to encourage you to go get this book and go get it immediately. One of my favorite books is called Who Moved My Cheese? And it's by Spencer Johnson. I believe it doesn't matter what your age, ethnicity, race, sex, it doesn't matter. You can read this book. It's super relatable to anybody, and it's a story, so it's going to catch you in really quickly, and you can read the book really fast. But it's a reminder that change isn't the enemy. But really, resistance to change is the bigger enemy. And when you think about embracing change, I want to make it super practical, because When you think about a caterpillar, okay, let's make this super practical. We all know that a caterpillar morphs from a caterpillar, it goes into its cocoon and it comes out to be a butterfly, right? Like we all know that. But do you think that a caterpillar actually runs from its metamorphosis? Like, do you think that a caterpillar ever says, like, no, I don't want to go into the cocoon? Like, no, I don't want to fly. Like, no, the caterpillar knows that this is a part of its life cycle. This is a part of what it's supposed to do. It knows that at some point it's going to lose those legs, they're going to go away. At some point, its body is going to be wrapped into this tight, squeezing tight shell. And at another point in its life, it's going to fly. And it doesn't resist that. It embraces that. Caterpillar never says, just stop my life right here. Caterpillar never says that. Like, it never says that. Like, we can make it even simpler. Like, if we think about human beings, us, right? We think about human beings, men, women, we don't go around when we're growing up, we never go around saying, like, okay, I just want to stop growing right here at 4'8". Like we never say, okay, stop. I don't want to keep growing. I don't want to get any taller. We don't have any say so, right? We enter into this world and we grow into our height and we stop growing when we reach our height, right? So why would we think that in this life of who we are, we have a choice to really stop growing and evolving? Like when we get to the point of resisting and when we start resisting change, like we're actually saying, like, okay, take yourself back to that caterpillar. Like we're saying, okay, I'm not gonna fly. I'm rejecting my natural I'm rejecting the natural process of life. And I really want you to get this because when you learn to embrace change, then you really begin to flow with life. You really begin to operate at a higher space because you're literally in the flow of how life is supposed to go. The trees naturally, they turn colors, they shed leaves, they go dormant for a little bit. When the sun comes back out and the rain comes back out, they sprout again. Like it's a process, right? And if we embrace our own natural process of life, then we understand that change doesn't mean that you lose who you are. It means that you just embrace who you're becoming. And so for me, I can remember countless times in business. Like business has been something that it will make change really clear, really obvious. So I just want to speak to all of my business girlies, people out there, entrepreneurs out there, because I get it, right? You probably get it because you know that change in business is something that's coming and it's happening regardless. And so when I think about embracing change versus resisting it, it really just takes me back to business. And I want to share two stories. One where I embraced it, and one where I resisted it and I missed it. So embracing it is really the one of the more recent opportunities that I had, which is stepping into my travel business. And I was super excited about it and ready because I was embracing the season of change. I felt it again, like, okay, I'm entering into some type of shift. I can feel that I'm starting to have some interest around business again. I didn't know really what it was going to lead me to. And I didn't have any like hard restraints on that either. Sometimes I feel like we can be so one track minded on it's got to look this way. But if you really begin to peel back the layers of what you desire in your life and you hold on to the desire, then you release the way that it has to show up. And so I knew that my desire was to expand into another business opportunity. So I just opened myself up to however that was going to come and find me. And it came through my travel business. And I was so ready and I was so open at that time. It was so easy for me to just embrace that opportunity and just flow into this um, easy and prosperous season in my travel business. And I really just want to like shout out my sponsor and my mentor, Tasha Griffin. Shout out to her because she had the courage in her own life and her own season to reach out to me with the opportunity. Because again, when you're in a season of reinvention, one of the ways is through opportunities. And so she gave me the opportunity, and that allowed me then to embrace change, the change that I was looking for in my life through travel. But I have also been in seasons where I have missed it, and I missed it. I was holding on to something that was for way too long, and I resisted change. And I can think about, some of you may know, I have my own business consulting firm, and uh, loved business branding, still do, just not operated in the same capacity. But during this particular season, I could sense a shift that was happening in the business. And from a financial standpoint, I could sense it. Anybody in business knows that there's waves in, from a financial standpoint, in business, right? And in those waves, you have to pivot. You may have to change your services or products. You may have to like dial back your expenses and become more resourceful. You find ways to navigate through business. And I found myself in one of those ways, and in one of those waves, and I didn't catch it. I didn't pivot early enough. Now, thankfully, I had established relationships that allowed me to back out of things and get out of contracts and deals without too much backlash, right? But it's in, if I had been sensitive, more sensitive, and embraced the change versus resisting it, I do believe that I could have pivoted sooner and avoided some of the pitfall. Even in that, y'all, like God is so good, because I pivoted and I was late because I resisted that initial change. I got out of that situation, but that situation taught me awareness. It taught me how to become more sensitive. So within the next 60 days, another opportunity presented itself. And I was like, okay, let me lean in here, because again, it's embracing change, not resisting it. I resisted it for so long. It led me to this path. Now I have an opportunity to embrace change again, and I've got another business opportunity. I kid you not, I leaned into that business opportunity, and within 60 days, I had turned around my finances and had produced five-figure income in that business. And so I say that to say, when you're leaning in and then you're embracing it, you find yourself in the flow. You find yourself right where you're supposed to be. You find yourself where God was trying to position you to begin with, if you had just stop resisting it, right? A lot of times we be asking, praying, believing, but then clench so hold tight to that thing that he's like, if you would just let that go, I could really just give you what I'm trying to give you. Like you're resisting it. Okay, I'm gonna move on. When you embrace change, you invite growth. When you resist it, you delay your evolution. And I'm a testament to it. I'm like, gosh, it only took me 60 days to get over here to this flow of income. If I had let it go sooner, I probably could have got more quicker, faster, right? And so it's, when you resist it, you delay your evolution. And I believe the true magic is in learning to see change not as a loss, but as a quiet reintroduction to your power. It's really just a level up. If this business is pulling me down, why not release it? Why not move on? Why not find something better, find something greater? We don't have to be loyal to things that are dragging us down, pulling us down. We don't owe that thing anything. We don't owe that situation. We don't owe that person. We don't owe that job. We don't owe it anything. We don't have to be loyal to something that's pulling us down. And when you resist it, you just delay your evolution. So embrace your reintroduction, embrace your reinvention, because it really is your level up. So think about this. If nothing around you changed, would you still become who you were meant to be? If nothing around you changed, If nothing in you changed, would you still become who you were meant to be? And I just don't believe that you would. The fact is that if nothing around you or about you ever changed, you would probably still be that egg in the embryo. You know, like you've been evolving and you've been changing since your creation. And so embracing it is really where your truest power is. And even in God's word, it tells us in Philippians 1:6, be confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it out into completion. And so when you think about that, if God's plan is to carry out good work until completion, that's a constant flow, that's a constant change, that's a moving, that's movement, that's shaping, that's reinvention, that's change. And so the decision is really just left with you. So in my journey through life, what I've realized is that a lot of resistance to change, it actually comes from fear. And so when we talk about, okay, why am I resisting this change? Like, why am I allowing the situation to hold me back? Why am I allowing myself to be stagnant, to be comfortable here? Why won't I reinvent? Why won't I evolve? What is it? I believe that it has a lot to do with fear. And some of it is self inflicted and some of it is projected. But what I've learned is that fear, it often dissolves in the presence of facts. And when we replace assumption with information, then anxiety and fear, they lose their power. When we replace assumption with information, anxiety and fear lose their power. And so it really just takes awareness, not avoidance. And that's what creates freedom. And so for me personally, just as I think about my own life and different transitions that I've had to navigate through and opportunities or crisis that could have really controlled me in fear, it brings me back to one particular incident that happened in Houston. My first apartment that I got in Houston, I think I was probably only living there for like 6 months, maybe 7 months, by myself, new city, and my apartment gets broken into. Boom. Like single woman in a big city, and my apartment gets broken into. And immediately, like, there's an opportunity for fear, right? After that, I decided there was two options. Okay, I could get a roommate or I could get a dog. And the roommate seemed like it would save me more money, so I got a roommate. And I kept the roommate for the rest of my time in Houston. But when I transitioned to Virginia, I had to make a decision again, right? Okay, am I going to be fearful to live by myself? Am I going to get a roommate or am I going to get a dog? And I took that as an opportunity to really like address the fear. Like, okay, what are the facts? And this may feel extreme, y'all, but this is literally what I had to do to overcome this fear of living by myself and this fear that I was going to be broken into or attacked again as a single woman. Now I live a life in a bubble. I know that I'm favored and ain't none of that around me. But at this particular time, I had to really like, uh, I had to put facts in place to help me overcome the fear. And I went through the Bible. I wrote out every scripture I could find on fear. I ran around my entire house and I stuck these sticky notes, these note cards, all over my house, at the front door, at the lights. So when I turned the lights out, it was there. It was a reminder that there was a fact over the fear, right? There was a truth that would lead me out of feeling like I had to just be in bondage to my apartment. Like, no, this is my safe space. I'm not going to feel uncomfortable in my safe space. I'm going to leave and come as I please, and I'm not going to accept anything otherwise, right? But in in that, the resistance really could have come if I had allowed the fear to be in place, right? I could have not moved to Virginia, not taken this job opportunity because I was so concerned with who am I going to live with and where am I going to live and what if this happens again, right? But I put the facts in place. I put the truth in place, and the anxiety and the fear lost its power. I found myself navigating not just in and out of my apartment, but all over the city, traveling all over into different cities and states by myself, feeling safe and protected because I eliminated the fear and stood in the truth of the matter. And so when you think about freedom, it doesn't come from avoidance, it comes from awareness. And you're able to embrace change easier when you have the facts. And so ask yourself, what shift am I in right now? And what part of that shift am I experiencing? And so I really want to just leave you with those questions. What shift am I in right now? And what part of the shift am I experiencing? Where do I need to embrace either a transition, a crisis, or an opportunity? As I close out this episode, I want to remind you of one of the ways that I've reinvented myself through the unraveling, the reimagining, rebranding, rebuilding, and it's been through travel. Travel has been not just trips for me, it's been a mindful, transformational, and luxury experience that has awakened new parts of who I am. I believe that luxury isn't just about a price, it's also about a presence. And one of the most luxurious things that you can give yourself is permission to evolve in beautiful places and feel good while doing it. And so thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching and listening all over the world. I am Larissa Nicole, and I create spaces where women rediscover their peace within themselves and the world around them. I do that through mindful travel, restorative wellness, and spiritual alignment. For more information on how you can book a luxury travel escape or transform your life through leveraged residual income, click the link in the website below. Love you.
Own it loud, say it proud.